Hello everybody, my name's True Demon and I'm the Devil Stockbroker, and I'm going to be doing a BBIG squeeze update for you today to recap everything that's happened in the market over the past couple of weeks and see what we can look forward to in the coming weeks. Right now, BBIG continues to trade in a descending channel, forming a very large descending wedge over the daily chart since about November, December of 2021. BBIG has been consolidating lately down to around about $1.05. The price level has seen some significant upside since we hit the all-time lows in BBIG's price action at a low of 67 cents. Calling out a few key features of the chart, you see that there's a series of descending wedges, one larger one and one internal one that we've broken out of to the upside of almost to $2. The price relaxed back within this channel, and we haven't quite escaped it, but you notice that there's been some wicks as BBIG has been bull flagging its way towards the outer bound of this larger descending wedge. The technical setup for this one is actually pretty nice. The bounce directly off of from the bottom to the top of this wedge, and then a retracement back down to about halfway between before we consolidated and are now attempting to retest these levels at around $1.25 to $1.20 over the next couple of weeks. The natural move for this to take, as soon as it is done with this consolidation phase, is to break out, retest, and then continue moving to the upside until it hits an eventual level of resistance. The two large levels of resistance that we have ahead of us are between $1.80 and $2.25. The MACD on BBIG has also crossed over right here after we made this recent move up where we tested 125 but were quickly rejected. The consolidation phase that we're going into right now is quite bullish as long as we can maintain that $1 level. Currently, we're seeing some indecision candles on the daily chart. If we move down to the hourly, we can see a little bit closer, and we notice that we see this triangle forming yet another descending wedge, which I would say that we are just about at the top of. We've got a little bit more to go. We should see some direction in BBIG's chart after the morning session. With the market pumping late into the day today, it's possible that we may see BBIG follow the market and start moving first thing in the morning, going up towards this level, consolidating at this liquidity zone before breaking out. At least that's the hope. The other possibility if BBIG isn't able to break out of this level is it fails to break out of this wedge and continues trading to the downside, at which point we're probably going to revisit this zone of demand here somewhere around the 90-cent level and then continue consolidation until we finally break out eventually at some point in October. Some catalysts that can cause this to move early on would basically hinge on the outcome of the court case between Vinco Ventures and Zash Global Media's chairman of the board, Ted Farnsworth. Moving over to the Ortex data, BBIG's short interest over its free float is continuing to consolidate at around 17-18% of the free float. The number of shares currently on loan is actually much closer to 25%, or about a quarter of the float, which is quite a significant portion of its tradable shares, considering that almost all of BBIG's float is traded, almost all of BBIG's outstanding shares are traded on the float. Due to the diminishing amount of volume, we've seen this huge run in the days to cover average on a 3-month moving average. Only just recently did this come back down to around the 2 days level. I don't put too much emphasis on days to cover, but I did take notice that a drop in days to cover coincided with a huge surge of volume, and shorts didn't really move or adjust their positions very much. Shorts have basically been, I would say most of them have been day trading throughout all of this chop, but a good portion of them really haven't changed anything. We had a significant move in the average days on loan while the number of shorts were increasing. and then decreasing shortly thereafter. I would kind of interpret this as shorts shuffling around positions from long term to short term is probably not that significant of an indicator as far as like what shorts are currently doing to the price or what they're thinking as far as their strategy. But it is just an interesting piece of data to keep in mind that shorts really haven't done very much moving around. They're very much day trading the chart, just like a lot of retail participants have been doing the same. I've zoomed out the chart slightly and added the security lending volume to the chart, which you can see as the bars here. And we noticed that early on, when BBIG had reached the bottom of its chart back in 2021, there was this surge in the price that shortly after led to a big increase in the short lending volume, which indicated shorts piling in. And this caused a huge dip and spike in the utilization just before BBIG started making a huge run. We're starting to see this hill forming in the security lending volume in BBIG. And this also coincides with a huge surge in the short exempts as well, which you can see here as the small orange bars between the security lending volume. The couple of hills that you see in summer of 2021, just before the large move that happened in August of that same year, is looking very similar to what we have here, except the difference is that these are much larger by comparison. I would chalk this up mainly to being to BBIG's float having increased significantly since that time. So there's more liquidity in the market, there's more shares trading back and forth. But this also could be an indication that market makers are having difficulty delivering shares, which we would kind of expect because retail has been by and large holding the stock continuously, building up positions, whereas institutions they've been doing the same thing. Institutions aren't shuffling their positions around as much, and we've seen that most of the institutional holders have maintained their positions uh, over the last 6 months. We can verify this by checking the institutional holders chart, which shows the BBIG price action versus the number of holdings of institutions. And by far, Hudson Bay continues to be the biggest holder, along with 5 Narrow Lane LP and BlackRock Incorporated, along with Vanguard. These are probably due to BBIG trading on ETFs belonging to these two groups. So we wouldn't expect this to change unless there was a rebalancing in those ETFs. But at least for 5 Narrow Lane and Hudson Bay, the fact that their holdings have continued to grow throughout this period, even though BBIG has reached the bottom of its chart, is quite encouraging. It demonstrates that the convictions of the institutions that have invested in Vinco Ventures aren't dissuaded by the downward price action, and that this may in fact be a part of their strategy to continue buying at these lower price levels, which we may see reflected in the upcoming 13F filings that are due to be updated within a few weeks. So I'll be watching this very closely to see if there's any significant position changes going from September of last year to September of this year. If there are any big institutional holdings changes over the last couple of months, then we'll see that with the latest SEC filings coming from those institutions. Now we get to my favorite piece of data, the short exempt stats. So BBIG recently had a print today where it printed the largest short exempt ratio relative to volume in recent history. We've seen that BBIG, while it was pricing around 90 cents to a dollar, it was consistently getting around 3 to 4% short exempt ratio, which just means 3 to 4% of the total volume being traded. Uh, excuse me, the total short volume being traded was short exempt. But now, just today, we had a very significant drop in the volume of BBIG, a decrease in the short volume, and a increase in short exempt volume. This is an indication of a loss of control by market makers because they haven't been able to control the price and there's less liquidity in the market, i.e., fewer shares trading back and forth and exchanging hands. They've turned to using short exempts in order to make up the difference and continue delivering shares and fulfill buy orders. We can speculate that this is due to retail continuously buying ahead of bullish momentum in anticipation of the conclusion of the BBIG court case. And a further confirmation to this is we see that the 5-day simple moving average delta rate is still remaining in the green. The price is slowly creeping upward on an average basis. Even though we've seen 2 red days in a row, we are still maintaining that bullish average momentum where the price is at least moving in the right direction over a 5-day period. And it seems small at first, but once the loss of control becomes more apparent and as algorithms flip on the institutions, then that buying pressure can become stronger and stronger. And with fewer sellers in the market, it gives market makers less and less and less opportunity to trade on the spread and make money flipping trades back and forth between those institutions and retail shareholders. When I compare this to past history, I look back at BBIG's previous squeeze that happened in August through September, and there's a specific date that sticks out. That's August 18th. Now, the price action wasn't particularly interesting on that day. What was interesting was that day there was a significant drop in the volume, but the amount of short exempts increased massively from the previous day. And we saw that same exact thing happen today, where the day previously, the short exempt ratio was around 2% of the short volume. And there was quite a lot of volume traded that day, and there was equally quite a lot of short volume being traded that day. And the short exempts kind of made sense. It was still pretty high, but it at least was reasonable considering the amount of shorting that was going on and the amount of buying that was going on the other end. It made sense that the market maker would need to fulfill those orders. But the very next day, what happened was the volume dropped massively, and there was less than half that amount of trading that happened throughout that period. The price didn't move all that much, but the short exempt ratio exploded, multiplying by 3 times. That is what gives us a clue that market makers are starting to lose control. And then all throughout the following week, starting with that Friday, the price continued to move up. And eventually, the by the Monday after the next, we saw the price start to climb rapidly from $3 up to $5, $10, and so on. And once the volume started carrying the price away from market makers such that they had no control anymore, that was when it became too late for them. So when you look at the volume profile of what's been going on, we've had consistently very high volume, very high short exempts going on throughout BBIG's trading sessions. And then all of a sudden, we've had a drop in volume where we're getting half the volume we saw earlier, but we're getting more than twice, in this case, more than 3 times the amount of short exempts that were happening the day previous. So the levels fluctuate pretty randomly at face value, but when you start to see these patterns and you compare it to previous squeezes, you start to see that there's a little bit of order to the randomness, and BBIG is starting to trip some of those signals where I'm like, okay, there's some volatility going on here, something's happening. And this could just be big institutions getting in and out of positions or rearranging themselves. That can totally be the case, but it seems very different. BBIG is starting to pick up steam. The momentum is starting to get much more interesting, and just based off of the trading view charts, we can see that there is real change to the momentum. We have a MACD cross. We've got the RSI is starting to try to break out past its moving average, and the volume has increased significantly over the last couple of weeks with big spikes on days where the price has seen a lot more action. The other thing that I will also point out here is that similar to this changeover on the MACD, where we saw the price shoot up very suddenly and then consolidated very rapidly, notice that the fast line shot up and then plateaued sideways as the slow line caught up. And after these lines touched, we got a very brief cross to the downside and then an immediate cross up. And now the price is starting to get volatile again. Well, this is very similar to what happened back here in December of 2021, where the price was consolidating very rapidly. We saw big momentum to the upside and then rapid consolidation to the downside. And notice the MACD did the exact same move, up and then plateau. And then the second leg of buying resulted in BBIG shooting all the way from $1 up to $3.50. So there's a couple of patterns here that are consistent with past history on BBIG. There's a saying in the market that the market rarely ever repeats itself, but it tends to rhyme. We're starting to see a few patterns that rhyme with past history for BBIG, indicating that some volatility is coming back to the stock. So this is definitely one to pay attention to for the next several weeks, especially with the big catalyst of potential merger with Zash Global Media and Vinco Ventures. This would instantly give BBIG a massive valuation change, transforming them from $1 million company to $1 billion company almost overnight. And further to that effect, between the acquisitions of AdRiser, Lomotif, and some of the other assets that Zash and BBIG share, their platform's potential to become the next global giant of social media is becoming more and more of a possibility every single day, especially as Congress and the FCC are pursuing the idea of banning TikTok, which would be Lomotif, the Lomotif #1 competitor, which by itself, Lomotif is really the only application that on its own 2 feet can stand against TikTok by itself. The last thing that I'll leave you with is a quick update on the court case and some of the other news that's been going on with BBIG, particularly as it pertains to John Colucci, the acting CEO of the company, who's now been kind of he's now being watched much more closely by a third-party outsider who's acting in the interest of the court, as well as the best interests of BBIG, and Ted Farnsworth has issued a motion to hold John Colucci in contempt of court for violating one of the court's rulings, a mandate that he would for the violation of excessive expenditure. One of the court orders that was issued on August the 17th was that that John Colucci, the plaintiff, wouldn't create any excessive transactions that would result in a excess of $250,000. And of course, he promptly did that because he placed he placed payments over $5 million that were sent to AI Pros Inc., which, after my brief investigation, is showing that this actually may not be a good faith actor that's working in the best interests of Vinco Ventures. These guys, for all we know, are just a scam company or a shell company that is being used to siphon off money and take it overseas as a laundering scheme of some kind. And this can't be definitively proven without a full investigation into both the finances and the business practices of AI Pros. But from what I've been able to see, they don't have a business. They don't do anything. And their infrastructure has basically been deleted from the face of the earth. I tried to go and find AI Pros and dig into them. They don't exist anymore. AI Pros' website, the main website that was listed against their domain, it doesn't exist. You can't find it, and there's no way to get back to it. And in fact, it doesn't even show up on Wayback Machine. So there's no cached version of this website. The business effectively doesn't exist, despite them having more than 1,000 individual DNS records. This is a website that I use in my job in information security as a consultant, called DNSdumpster. I use this to reconnoiter domains that I'm looking to perform security activities. Normally, this is to investigate the origin of a domain and find other hosts that it uses on that domain. And I went and dug through this entire list. There are domain names and hosts numbering in the hundreds. All of them go back to various Google Cloud servers. These all have been previously configured with well-known, well-documented software, mainly using Nginx server, which is a web service. And almost every single one of these used to be a working domain on the Google Cloud platform. But the thing is that you can't get to any of these anymore. They stopped existing. You can go ahead and type this domain in for yourself. All you have to do is go to DNSdumpster.com, type in AI-pros, AI-pros.com, go ahead and click search. You'll get this entire list of hosts. I challenge you to go and visit every single one of these websites, and you will not find a single one that is live on the internet anymore. This business is entirely a shell. They don't exist anymore. They used to. These sites used to do something. There are records of there being open services. This website would not have cached this data showing things like OpenResty and Nginx web server and Apache web server running PHP code with a WordPress site of version 6.0 on it unless there was actually something there at some time. The fact that all of these have been wiped off the face of the earth should be extremely suspicious, and I really do challenge the board of Zash Global Media ahead of their merger with BBIG to investigate this company and find out what their actual business model is and whether or not they exist anymore. Because whatever money was just sent to AI pros, I'm pretty sure they're never going to see again. The statement that the reality is that the plaintiff is looting company coffers to enrich AI pros is a completely accurate statement, in my opinion. I would take this information directly to the judge and place John Colucci and all of his conspirators under arrest and find out who the owners of AI Pros are and execute an extradition order to have them brought to the United States to face criminal charges. What's going on here is a massive laundering scheme, and Vinco Ventures is the victim. Money being siphoned off to be sent overseas to a non existent company called AI Pros that was built originally in the Philippines, headquartered in a non existent office in the United States. We can confirm this by looking at the company directory for California businesses and AI Pros Incorporated, based out of Redwood City, California, this is their address that's registered according to their business registration. You can actually go to this place on Google Maps, and you can see this office. This office is for lease and unoccupied. There's nothing. There's no actual businesses in here. I would challenge anybody who is actually within this area of Redwood City, California, to actually go and check Suite 100 of this particular building. It shares a building with Intelligence USA, Fuzzbuzz, Heidi's Group Incorporated, and as a matter of fact, Suite 100 is registered to Intelligence as well. So something just isn't right here. I'm not even certain that this business or its office is occupied anymore. This has all of the makings of a shell company. If this does not actually exist, then all of the money that is coming out of Vinco Ventures being funneled to AI pros is going directly to offshore bank accounts where that money will never be seen again. So if this is happening, then there needs to be some kind of injunction put on any spending by John Colucci, and like beyond being held in contempt, I think that we need to start talking about felony charges of embezzlement and money laundering. Right now, we're looking at just this massive sum of money being transferred to a company that nobody has seen, nobody knows exists, nobody has actually been to their office, and nobody has a fucking clue what the hell they do. Something's not right here. We need to start making arrests now, okay? We're past the point of holding people in contempt. Now we need to start holding people on felony charges. And let's actually just use our brains here for 5 seconds, okay? I will challenge the judge to just take one look at this statement of charges and then go and compare it to the information that I just shared with you about a company who has a fully fledged, quote, AI development business that is revolutionizing the field of social media, and yet has no business website, no business address, and has not seen nobody's seen any of their employees in the United States in the last year. What the hell is going on? Long and short of it is, I think that BBIG is going to have some serious volatility to get through for the next several weeks. If we do see a short term break to the upside through its chart, then that would be great for it. But ultimately, what really needs to happen is this court situation needs to be put to rest. And Zash needs to merge with Vinco Ventures. John Colucci and all of his co-conspirators need to be arrested, held in contempt of court, and have criminal charges placed against them for laundering money and raiding the company, as well as committing acts of corporate sabotage and corporate espionage. And then they need to go after AI pros, because this is a foreign company that was developed by a entrepreneur from the Philippines who is not a natural born citizen of the United States that suddenly has this flourishing AI business in the States and yet has almost no actual business to speak of that we know of. Like the whole story has scam written all over it. So I'll leave it to you, the viewer, to draw your own conclusions. But for me, this one is a pretty open and shut case, and I look forward to seeing the judge's rulings in the coming weeks as we progress through this court motion. That's going to conclude today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the content and you found something that was useful to you, if this was new information that you hadn't heard before, please be sure to leave the video a like. It helps out the YouTube algorithm, and subscribe to the channel so that you can get updates like this in the future. And also, if you're interested in contributing to the community or being a part of a trading group that'll help you advance your own trading career and improve your own skills, please consider joining Hell's Trading Floor at discord.gg/hellstradingfloor or by visiting our website at hellstradingfloor.com. Thank you guys so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow at the bell. Have a hell of a time in the markets.